many of you are starting to see a little bit of shadowing where you might fall on the chart already? Okay, good. Let me show you how to quarter this just a little bit. When we talk about the different colors, not only yourself, but others as well. The yellows and the blues are more open individuals, where the greens and the reds are more closed. Okay? The left side, the yellows and the greens are more indirect, and the blues and the reds are more direct in their approach in things. The left side is more reserved, where the right side is more outgoing. How many of you have heard introverted versus extroverted? Okay. I don't really like to use that because it gives you images of things that I don't think necessarily are all that right. I would just tell you that the yellows are more, just laid back a little bit, where the greens are just more outgoing in the things that happen, and you can really tell when you get around a crowd. When you get in we're going to go, many of us are going to go to convention. And even into a small group like this, the yellows and the greens will lose energy to a group of people. Okay? And the blues and the reds will get energy from the group. So even after tonight, even after our small little get-together tonight, right? The yellows and the greens will walk out of here going, oh, wow, that was a lot. That was a lot. I sort of got some of it, but I got so tired. Right? I mean, just after that, because you lose energy to the group of people. Where the blues and the reds are like, oh, that was sweet. That was great. I think I understand something. I got to call somebody. Right? I understand how this plays out because you grab energy from the group. Get together with 5,000 people like we're going to next weekend. Right? And next week, and it's going to be the same. Some of the yellows and the greens are just going to be laying on the floor. Right? And the reds and the blues are just going to be ready to charge out there and hit it really hard. That's how we sort of be able to find out what side of that chart we live on, or at least we're part of. Less verbal on the left side, more verbal on the right. So yellows and greens are less verbal, and blues and reds are more verbal. Let me walk you through it this way. People on the left side, the yellows and the greens, need to process thought before they speak. Okay? They need to think about it in order to say something. Whereas the people on the right-hand side of the chart need to speak in order to think. If they ever get to the thinking part. Right? They just start talking. How many of you on the left-hand side of the chart have ever walked away from a conversation a couple hours afterwards and go, oh, I wish I would have said this. I thought about it too late. I didn't get it. How come I don't think about those things right away? See, and you'll beat yourself up for that. Okay? But where the people on the right-hand side of the chart, how many of you ever walked out of the room, the reds and the blues, ever walked out of a conversation a couple hours later, thought about it and go, ooh, I wish I wouldn't have said that. Right? Anybody? Okay, yeah, see, so that's what happens there. Now, it's important in our business because if you get a bunch of people around the table, if you get a bunch of people around your kitchen table and you're explaining to them our business and everything like that, and you say, hey, anybody have any questions? And if it's a bunch of yellows and greens, nobody's going to ask you a question. And you could sit there and go, oh, nobody has any questions. They must not be interested. I don't think this is going to work. Right? And you could talk yourself just out of our business. Well, you're not going to get questions from yellows and greens. Right? That's why whenever I give a presentation to anybody, I find the bluest person or the greenest person in the room, and I simply hand them information. I don't ask if they have any questions because they won't verbalize, even though they got a million of them in their head. Right? Because they're less verbal. They got a lot of questions. Okay? So I just hand them the piece of paper that I want them to look at, and the greens are like, that's exactly what they're looking for. Okay? And so they'll look at it, and they'll be able to do that, and they'll hand it over to the yellow, and the yellow will be like, they won't read it because that'd be rude, and they don't want any conflict, right? And then they'll hand it to a blue, and if there's no pictures there, they're not going to read it. And by the time it gets to the red person, they're like, oh, I knew this already, right? So it's just, don't worry about that process. Just recognize that that's how that plays out. The yellows and the greens will seek advice, where the blues and the reds and the right-hand side chart, they'll give advice freely. You don't even really have to ask for it from that group, right? They'll just go ahead and give that to you. Yellows and greens blame themselves, where reds and blues blame others. Okay, trying to see which side of the chart you fall on here, but here's the thing. You're getting ready to come over, you're getting ready to do a meeting, right? And you're waiting for people to come, and they're not coming. And the yellows and the greens, you got to be aware of this. Yellows and greens will beat themselves up and go, I should have picked them up. It was my fault. I don't think this is right for me. It's not going to work, right? And they'll just talk themselves out of it. And then you got to pick up the pieces. It's okay. It's all right. Don't worry about it. That's just the way it happens. You know, some people, it's more important to you because you know what's going on. You got to build those people back up a little bit if you're dealing with a green or a yellow. Okay? On the blue and the red side, these people are waiting for people to come to a meeting. They don't show up, and they're like, what's wrong with those idiots? Why didn't they show up? I can't believe they didn't show up. And you got to tell them, hey, you have to give more than an hour's notice. Right? I mean, you can't just tell them. So you got to sort of play both sides a little bit on that. So there's the left and the right side. Let's talk about top and bottom here for a second. Greens and reds use conflict to get resolutions, where yellows and blues avoid conflict at all cost. Let me give you an example. You invite somebody over to your house to come to a meeting, and you say, hey, our meeting's next Thursday. Can you come? A green and a red will say, well, let me check my calendar. Let me look at my calendar. So they'll tell out their calendar, and they'll look at it, yep. See, because if they don't look at their calendar, that question creates conflict for them, or creates a tension. And everybody's trying to avoid tension, right? So they use conflict to get done with tension. So they use conflict by saying, oh, okay, yep, it looks open, I'll put you on there. And they put you on the schedule. It's great. Yellow and blue, you ask them to come over to your house next Thursday, and they're going, when? When is that? Thursday? Next week? Yeah, you know, that it could, maybe. That might work. That might work. You know why? Because first of all, they don't have a calendar, right? And secondly, they're thinking, what if something more fun comes up between now and next Thursday? Right? So they won't write it down. They'll sort of give you that non-committal answer that we're all used to, right? So next week, when it comes a couple of days before Thursday, what you need to do is you need to call the yellows and the blues and say, hey, just wanted to remind you of the meeting that's coming up in a couple nights. And they're like, oh, great, I'll be there. Nothing else better came up. Right? You don't have to call the greens and the reds. Why? Because they'll call you. Find out if the meeting's still on, because it's on their calendar. All right. Blues and yellows need freedom, where reds and greens need structure. The group on top needs options, where this one needs answers. There's no better picture of the difference between a top person and a bottom person, right? A yellow or blue and a green and a red, than if you take the two groups on vacation together. The group at the bottom, the greens and the reds, are looking at their schedule for their vacation and say, oh my goodness, look at how much fun this is going to be. Look at all the stuff we've got to do. We start with a little hello, luau type of a thing at 8:30 in the morning, and then we go on this tour and that, then we see this ruins, and then we see that. Oh, we have 45 minutes of free time. That's going to be fun. And then we go on this tour, another shopping thing and all this other stuff, and it's the whole scheduled first day, second day, third day, and they are in heaven. Why? Because they're not going to waste a minute of their time on vacation. They're going to make it and use it to the fullest. Where a yellow and a blue are like, you give them that kind of schedule, like, oh, I can get that kind of schedule at work. Can't we just hang out and see what happens? Right? So those two differences right there. One needs structure, one needs freedom. That's why whenever we're sharing our business, is that those people that need a schedule of events and happenings and guidelines and books, right, and trainings, you need to offer those so that they feel comfortable in their steps and progression through our business. But you cannot give a yellow or a blue a mandated book to fill out, because they'll run from you. You have to give them the freedom and flexibility to do what they want and how it is they want to on their time frame, right, without creating that conflict. So, this is the best explanation of the four colors that I've heard from somebody. A red says, let's throw a party. They make a decision. Okay? And then a green says, great, I'll organize it. I'll pull everybody together. Make sure everybody on the list gets notified and everything like that. Yellow's like, that is awesome. I'll get all the stuff. We'll get name tags so we know each other. We can say hi. That'll be fun. I'll make sure the cups coordinate with the plates and everything so it looks real nice too. Yellows do that beautifully. And then a blue says, sweet, I'll be there. Okay.